Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Hopefully you've been following along with this tutorial series where we're creating this Instagram newsfeed type clone, as you can see on the right hand side of the screen. Yeah, hopefully you've been following along and you've enjoyed the series. If you have been following along and not yet subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel or like the videos or share them, even if you're just sharing them. I'm trying to make the channel grow now, so more subscribers, more eyes, and and then potentially adding more value to people that want to learn how to create iOS apps. This particular app that we're creating is using an asynchronous framework, or a synchronous UI framework called Texture, and the and that's used by the likes of Pinterest. Buffer, they've just recently released a new app called RMX. That's all written in Texture, and you'll find that some of the other tech companies use other frameworks other than Storyboards, UIKit, and Swift UI. So yeah, this is built in Texture. If you've not been following along to the tutorial series and you've landed here for the very first time, all the links for the playlist, this particular playlist, is going to be in the description below. The link to the source code where this project's hosted on GitHub is going to be in the description below. And if you are interested in the other tutorial series where I made a comic book app from absolute nothing, then that's all using UIKit and absolutely no storyboards. The link to that is going to be in the description below as well. So that's enough talking. Now we're going to look at actually populating this story section at the top here, this horizontal scrolling collection view. We're actually going to start looking at populating that with raw data. So first of all, we need to create a new function, which is called populate. It takes in a parameter of type called story of type stories, and that's going to be optional. So that's that function, and we need to actually take this block of code here, and we need to paste that in there. And now this needs to get changed to stories dot user dot username. And this is optional, so we need to provide it a unknown known user. So if we do have a username and this username is nil, then we will provide it unknown user. We need to pop a couple of question marks in there. So now we need to pass in image node dot URL equals URL, and then it'd be string, and story dot user dot profile. What's the attribute? User profile image URL, like so. Let's go back to there, paste that in. Oh, that's not called stories, that's called story, like so. Like that. If we build that, that should be all good. Oh, this will complain because this needs to be optional as well, and we're going to provide it an empty string. In a real world environment, you'll probably have your server send you a default image, or you would store a default image in your bundle locally. So if we build that again, that will fix our problem. Oh, we need some question marks on those as well because they're optional. So look, that's all good. Excellent. So for now, that is as far as we are going to go in this particular section. So the thing I need to do now is we need to find out where this particular story feed is being used. So let's look at callers. I think it's in here. Story feed data source, this one here. So that's that. So now we need to focus on looking at the data source. And what we need to do here is we need to adjust this number of items in section. We also need to introduce 3 optionals. One is a user. User equals user is of type user. One is watched. Actually, we'll call it watched videos. Stories. This is going to be unwatched videos. Oh, sorry, it's unwatched stories. We'll rename this to unwatched stories. Copy that there. Like that. Then we're going to create a new function, func called set story data, like that. And then we're going to have stories, and that's going to be an array of stories. That's optional. And then we're going to have user, which is a user. That's optional too. Then here we need to now filter out from this stories property here. We need to from this stories property here. We actually need to filter out the which stories have been watched and unwatched. So first of all, we look at the watch ones. Watch stories equals stories dot filter d in d dot is watched. Should have an attribute on there called is watched. Oh, do that. Dot is watched, like so. And then if that is true, then we will populate the stories array with all the watched stories. We'll populate the watch stories array with all the watch stories. Then we need to do the same for unwatched stories. Equals stories dot filter d in d dot is watched. Oh, we need this optional. Is watched equals false, like so. And that will be that for there. And then we just need to set our user. So yeah, user self.user equals user, like so. And while we're on that subject, I need to add a new attribute to our base data source, because if we look at our JSON here, we have this my user. So I'm going to take that and then do var user, and is of type user, is optional. And then we need to do an enum, coding keys, string, coding key, like so. And then our case user equals that there. And then we need to do case stories and case newsfeed, like that. So I've covered what coding keys do in a previous video. So coding keys basically say if your attribute from the server is different to the one that you're setting up in your struct or your class, then you need to have coding keys. Then in here we need to do else if section equals 1, and then we'll do return self dot unwatched. So our unwatched stories need to be first. Unwatched stories dot count, and then if we can't unwrap, if that's nil, then we'll provide a default value of 0. Else, we'll fall into the third section, and we'll go self dot watched. Oh, I need to return self dot watched dot question mark dot count 0. That should be all good, which it is. That's wonderful. Okay, so the next task is we need to set up our sections in here. So to stop any retain cycles in this return block, we'll create a weak self reference. And then we are going to do a if index path dot section equals 0, else if index path dot section equals 1, and then finally we'll just do the else here like that. So here this is where our user story, like where you would create a user story on Instagram. The first person is the individual user, the account holder. So we're going to just return an ASL node for now. And then here we are going to do a let story. So we need to get the individual story from our unwatched stories array. And to do that, we're going to do self question mark because of the weak self above. Unwatched stories and then a question mark. And then we access the array by doing index path dot item like so. So this will actually give us one individual story from the array. So now we need to create a new cell. This is going to be story feed node like that. And then we need to do a cell dot populate and pass in the story like so. And then we just return the cell at the end, and that should be that. And then our good friend excuse me, our good friend copy and paste is going to work here. Tidy that up, and then this is just going to be our watch stories, and that should be everything we need for that section there. So in our story feed cell here, we're going to get rid of that now, and we're going to take in two parameters on our initializer, stories, like that. That's an array of stories. And we need to take in our user as well. That's of type user, that's optional as well. This little block of code here, I'm going to take out there, and I'm going to put it in a private function. It's just so that our initializer is not full to the brim of code, and it's just nice and clean, like nice one-liners. Set up nodes, nodes, like that. Paste that in there, tidy that up. Then here in our data source, we need to do data source dot stories, and we're going to pass in the stories like that, and we're also going to pass in the user like that, and we are just going to steal this little section and paste that there like so, and that will make that update. And then in our setup node, in our initializer, we need to call setup nodes and pass in through the stories and the user, like so. And then we need to find out where story feed cell is being used. I think it's in the... Is it in here? Yeah, it's here. So then here we need to now do story feed cell like that, and in pass in our stories. So it's going to be self dot data source. That's going to need a question mark. S source dot stories, and then we need to do self dot question mark, sorry, dot data source dot user, like that. And if we build and run that, that should be all good. Cool. So let's stop that and build and run that. That all compiled okay. So let's see what it looks like in the simulator. So we should actually have images being pulled in now. And the name. May just have to tweak the design slightly. There we go. We have a name. And we have a... Here we have a name. And we have the characters icon appearing. So now, if we go back to our story feed node, we're going to add a little border around. So first of all, we're going to get rid of that green. We're going to add a border. So we do image node dot border width equals 2. And we're now going to do an inline if to say if the video is unwatched, then it'll be grey. If it's watched, it'll be red. So image border color equals so we need to do story dot is watched. This is optional, so we'll provide a default value of false. If that's the case, then we do UI color dot light gray dot CG color. So if it's watched, then we will provide it a light grey colour. If it's unwatched, then we'll provide it a red colour. UI colour dot red dot CG colour, like so. So now if we build and run that, we'll see red circles and grey circles, and we won't have the green background anymore. And then our next task is to get rid of that blue background, which we will just make our collection node background color to be clear. And then that's pretty much it in regards to pulling in the data for our stories. Our next task is to actually set up our user node with the little plus button that you see on Instagram. So as you can see there, we have our images. We've got 2 unwatched videos, so they're grey. They're red, sorry, and 2 and 3 watched videos, so they're grey. So let's make this clear, and let's focus on building this. The reason we have this gap here is because that's where our user story. Our user stories will be presented. So we're going to create a new node. Oops. That one. Command in. We're going to call this user story node, like that. And this here is going to be a class. It's going to be a class, and it's going to be, we're going to call that user story, and we're going to inherit from our story feed node. So we get all the good stuff from that class. And then do var add. We're going to have a little add button, so the little plus that you see on the bottom right hand corner of that circle on Instagram. Call it add button. We need to also import asyndisplaykit. AS button node, like that. And then we need to do an init and override that, call super on that initializer, like so. Then we need to create a function called populate, like that. It's going to be a user of type user, like so. And then we do image node, so the access our image node from our parent class. URL, string, all pretty much stuff that I've covered in this tutorial. So we're going to do user dot profile image URL. This is optional. Again, like I said in the other class, that you would use a default image. Our name node is going to be attributed. In actual fact, we'll just copy and paste that from here. Whoops. Copy and paste that there. In actual fact, what I'm going to do is, as you can see here, it's quite difficult to see, but some of the text is quite large, so I'm going to make that a bit smaller, make that 10, and do the same in here, like so. But instead of it being story, we just need to access the user. And that's our populate function is pretty much done there. So we're going to do private func setup node, and then we do add button dot background color equals UI color. What I've done with this, I've already pulled in an extension which is you can find anywhere online, which is color string with hex, and you just pass it a hex value. And it will just convert that hex value into a UI color. So we're going to do color string with hex, and I've already pre-picked a blue. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4 of those, 8 and a B, and then do add button dot set title, and we're going to cheat. We're not actually going to provide an image. We're just going to do plus and the UI font dot bold system font. Give that 15. And when I say cheat, normally you would have like a plus icon on the actual button, but I'm just going to provide it some text for now. And then we do UI color. Actually, we can just do dot white. So that's the color we're going to use, and we want that to behave in this manner for a normal state, for when our button's in a normal state. So now we need to provide our button a border color. So that's border width. We're going to make that 1.5, and add button dot border color equals dot UI color dot white dot CG color. Like that. and then we need to give it a size. So add button dot style, access the style attribute, and then inside style there's a preferred size, and we do CG size, width 20 by 20, and then add button dot corner radius equals 20 divided by 2, and then we need to call in our setup node. And then finally, the last piece of the missing puzzle for our user story is, in this particular class, is to set up our layout spec. Layout spec that fits, that one there. So here we're going to look at a new spec, a layout spec called corner spec, like that, and it's AS corner layout spec, and this will take in a child. So our child is the image node, so our profile image. The corner is going to be the item that we want to put in the corner, which is, in this instance, is our add button, and the location. So if we do dot, it'll tell you, basically, if you think of a square, it gives you top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right, and we want ours to appear in the bottom right hand side. We need to tweak it slightly by adding an offset. So corner spec dot offset equals CG point, like that, and then we need an X and Y, so we're going to do -10 and -10, because it would be like right tight to the bottom. We need it actually just to come up a little bit, and then return. And then finally we need to put this corner spec into a stack view. So if we do return AS stack layout spec dot horizontal, vertical, spacing is going to be 6, start, we need that to be in the center. We align the items in the center, and then our children is an array of items, so we need our corner spec, so our image and our overlaid button, and our name node, which we are getting from the parent class. So now we need to, in our user feed, is it this one? It might be in this one. Yeah, so in here we now need to say let cell equals user story user. Let's build that because it's not picking up the class. Let's make sure user. I called it user story node. Yeah. Like that, and then do cell dot populate. That's just return cell. Make sure that compiles. It's picking up the wrong cell for some reason. Populate user, yeah. So if we do cell dot pop, yeah, there you go. And then we need to pass in self dot user dot self dot self dot user. That's, yeah, and that should do that. And then now if we build and run, we should see our user icon with a little plus icon in the bottom right hand corner of the cell, all being good. There you go. And as you can see, we've got a border color. We've got this little plus logo at the bottom right hand corner of the collection view cell, or the collection node cell. It's all scrollable. This is all kind of scrollable as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And that's kind of like the end of the tutorial series, really. We've gone from building, having an app that was a blank canvas, and we've recreated the Instagram newsfeed. Obviously, it's missing the tab bar and all that sort of stuff, but that's super straightforward to implement. So yeah, that's kind of it for this video series on how to build this Instagram newsfeed, and we've got the stories and stuff. So like I say, hopefully you've been following along, and hopefully you have found it of interest, and you've learnt some bits and pieces about this new framework you may not have come across before in the past. If you have any questions, or you feel I've not explained anything properly, then please leave a comment below, and I'll get back to you. And I could probably do another video on and pick up the areas that I've not covered it very well. Yeah, so please like and share the video. Please subscribe to the channel, or you don't have to like the video, you can dislike it if you like. It's all part of learning. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I'm trying to grow the channel now and get in front of more people. So yeah, you can follow me on Instagram. You just search for my handles at that iOS developer, same as the channel, and the icon's the same, so you won't be able to, it's not like you'll get the wrong person. And yeah, finally, I hope you have a fantastic weekend. I hope you've enjoyed the series, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye for now.